would you say our design philosophy has changed in recent history? It seems like our products are not only sounding great as they always have, but they're also looking and feeling really good. How has that changed for us?
Well, I would say that in the past 10, 15 years, we've evolved a lot in terms of design. We've been coming from a design which was quite squarish, I would say, big black boxes, and we think that actually beyond that, you must add something to the product so it's perfect. So what we're doing is that we have the best sound, but we want to have also the best design. And design for us means ergonomics, means aesthetics, so the product blends well in the environment and so on. Yeah.
You know, when you set out to build a new speaker, right? When we say, okay, there's a need for us to build a solution in this segment. Is that where we start then? Is the actual aesthetics? Is that the first thing you do?
Well, it depends, I would say. So what we look is at the users, yeah? So what is important for us is not to design what we want, but what the user wants.
Right.
So we look at the different users we have. So we have DJs, musicians, we have installations, also rental companies, so a lot of different applications, house of worships, for example, and so on. And we try to look at what is important for them. For example, for a DJ, it's important that he or she has speakers that look good on stage, yeah? So next and right to him, doesn't want to have big bulky boxes, for example. So that's very important for us. For installations, for example, also you have certain requirements that are not the same as for mobile applications. So we try to look at all these aspects and to find the best combination of cues in terms of design to make the best looking product. But the first thing is that the product needs to sound good. So that's the most important thing for us.
So you're starting with the user base, really, and getting that information from them. So I assume, you know, surveys and staying in contact with those users and getting input throughout the process then, or is it just in the design phase or the early stages there?
It's a never-ending process, I would say. You know, it's not for a specific product that we do interviews, for example, with users, that we track what's happening on the market. We're really doing that every day. You know, it's our daily life, I would say.
Sure.
We breathe and live that.
We live it, right.
Yeah, we live it. So that means that we look a lot at what they're doing. We observe a lot how they're performing with their materials, so what they do with it, you know, not only how it looks on the stage or how they plug inputs to it, for example, but we look at how do they transport it, for example. How do they take it from the back of their car, you know, to the stage? How do they assemble it on the stage?
Yeah.
So all these aspects are very important for us.
And I think what's cool about that is it seems to me that we actually are actively listening, like you mentioned, all the time. And there's even instances that I'm aware of where just by paying attention constantly, that we absorb enough information from the users to actually know what they're asking, even when they don't ask for it. So an example of that might be on Evolve, for instance, on the top of the sub, you know, where we put that design plate where the handle is, you know, is a great example of, I don't think anyone ever asked us for, hey, design a speaker that looks like I shouldn't be able to have guests put their drinks on it, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that we've watched enough and seeing people complain about that, we knew that that would be a solution that we could give them that they never even asked for as well, right?
Yeah, well, that's a big combination of things, you know, like, for example, if you take the top of the Evolve, it's a big combination. It's something that we observed, yeah, you're right. And I wouldn't say that's the reason why we did it this way completely, but that's part of the reason, yeah?
Right.
So, yeah, it's true. I mean, it's by observing what's happening on the field, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. It's a little bit like a cliche, but it's 100% customer focus.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we don't design products for ourselves, yeah? Maybe we used to, everybody used to, I think, but we don't develop products for ourselves.
Yeah.
We take the customer inputs. Of course, we're experts, so we know also what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, but what is important for us is to please the customer. So the user friendliness of the product is key for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been obvious that a speaker should sound good, right? We've always done that well, but really with the focus on the customer, it's other elements that start being developed in a better way. So, I mean, what elements would you say are improved because of our focus on the customer then?
So I think it depends on the product, of course. Yeah, we do microphones, we do speakers, we do amplifiers, we do a bunch of products. So, and it depends for the product. Yeah, for example, you take a microphone. For example, we're very careful with the mechanics of the product. Besides the acoustic that you can get out of the product, the mechanics of the product. For example, on instrument microphones, we're very careful with the ergonomic of the product and the mechanics. So actually, you can lock actually the microphone in a certain position.
It doesn't move around.
It doesn't move around, and it's there and it's stable. When it comes to speakers, for example, besides the sound, and the sound quality and the performance and the loudness of the product, we want the product to be as easy to use as possible. And easy doesn't mean that it's simple and it's oversimplified. It means that you have the right amount of features on the product and not too much. That's super important that it's not too much, because otherwise it can be overwhelming, and we want the user to feel comfortable with the product and a range of users. That's sometimes the difficulty, is that our products must meet requirements for a various number of customers.
And that ease of use isn't just when you're actually using the product, but you're also considering then the setup and transportation and things like that, right? It's the entire experience of owning the product, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It starts from something very simple, which is when you buy the product in a store, for example, the packaging of the product. When you open the box, and how do you take the product out of the box? So that's something that is super important for us. It looks stupid, but you know what?
Yeah, some of those big buys. I mean, that's a pain in the butt.
So how do you take the product out of the box? So we did some very nice packaging ideas, for example, where you can lift the speaker from the side instead of from the top. So you have a handle on the side, you can pick it from the side like that, and all the packaging.
It's like Christmas Day. I want to get to that toy right away, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you don't have to take it and the thing are rubbing on the side, and you don't take the speaker out. So it works pretty well. Also, the material that we use for the packaging, we try to be as environmental friendly as we can. To make sure that actually you can dispose these products and all these materials. Recycle that.
Yeah.
And then when you own the product, when you get it, when you go home and you unpack it, well, you need to store it somewhere. So we have nice covers that allow you, for example, to stack products together. When you transport the product, we have very nice positioning of handles, for example, the product. That's very, very important for us. So when you carry the product, for example, it's in a good position. It doesn't hurt your leg, for example. When you put it on the floor, that it lays flat on the floor, that you don't damage the product. When you put it in your trunk, the fact that you can actually have handles in different positions so you can really take it. And then when you go on stage, for example, as a musician or as a DJ, that you can put it easily on the stage.
And we're going to talk more about audio and the sound characteristics later, but all of those things that you just mentioned, are also part of it, the engineering process. So we're also, taking all of these parts and making them ourselves. We're not just buying a handle or a wheel or off the shelf, right? I mean, these are thought out pieces to an overall system, a solution that the customer's looking for. So I think the way you've described it to me, the function of the product was always there, but now the form is really coming together to elevate the entire system.
Yep. So. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it goes beyond the pure function of the product.
Right.
So you have a very big element in the design of the product. So that means aesthetical, and that means also how it's done. And I think you just mentioned that we have this capability in-house. We're one of the few companies that actually can do everything. So we can design our own enclosures, for example, in wood, or in composite, for example.
Right.
So we know how to design these things. So they look good, they sound good. So that means that the product doesn't move, for example, doesn't change physical dimensions when actually you play them, because there's quite a lot of pressure in the box.
Force,
So there's a lot of force. So you can have the side of the product that could be moving and could be doing some nasty noise actually, and we know how to control that, and we design all these things in-house. So enclosures, handles, waveguides, transducers also, amplifiers. So we have our sister company, Dynacord, a German company who's doing amplifiers. So we're doing amplifiers in-house. So that means that either if it's an external amplifier, for example, so a power amplifier that you have in a rack or embedded in a speaker, it's coming from us. So it's designed by us.
Okay, so specifically, what features or things that we can touch and feel have happened as a result of this process now?
Well, a lot of them. A lot of them. I think when you take, for example, let's take a speaker. Let's take a loudspeaker, a powered loudspeaker. So when you look at the powered loudspeaker, you have an amplifier at the back. So all the positioning, for example, of the elements on the amplifier panel are linked to customer experience, yeah?
Right.
So user research and so on. So for example, we're the first ones to implement an LCD at the back.
Right.
And you can access actually all the DSP functions through one single knob.
With the encoder right on, yeah.
So that's something that brings a big value actually to the user because it's simple, it's elegant and so on. We went to the next move, which is allowing actually to monitor and to control this DSP remotely with an app. So we have an app to do that. And even the design of the app, if you look at the app and if you look at the design of the app, it's done with the same kind of style guide as the one we use for our products. That means that you would have, for example, angles, sharp design, very black, red colors, black, red, and white colors, which is a little bit what we use also for speakers and for products in general. If you take microphones, speakers, amplifiers, we use this kind of tones.
And now you actually see that design being copied on a lot of other speakers, right? Like you say, we're the first ones to do it. I mean, that's true. Yeah. And then you see, the next generations, and they're not even as good as the first one that we made, right?
Yeah, and it's a fine art, I would say. I mean, when you design, for example, an app to control these speakers, you need also a lot of people are doing apps to control speakers, but it's very difficult to manage and to work with these apps.
Yeah.
What we want with these apps, for example, is that you use it the first time, you understand how it works. And it works.
Well, especially when there's so many features and you're ultimately, controlling it on a 4-inch screen, right? That's a lot to think about and to get right.
Besides that, so you have nice features that you can see on the product, like the LCD that you can control with the app.
Sure.
You have these features, but what we want also is mechanically, because it's at the end it's a product, it's a real physical product. We want to bring something else than just being a black box, So we have this DSP, we have this nice feature at the back, but we want also the product to be very easy to manipulate, to install on a wall if you want to do an install. We want to offer flexibility to the user, for example, so that's why we have black and white speakers for most of our lines now.
Yeah.
So going forward, that's what we're doing. We want to offer this flexibility to the user. And the last thing that we're doing is making sure that the products are really easy to use in all configurations. Sure. So one good example for that is Evolve, our portable column system.
No, of course.
Where the full design of the product, and it's been a long, long process, has led us to a design that is very robust, It's looking like an EV product, like an Electro-Voice product, which means that it can be seen a little bit as an aggressive design, but on the other side, we want it to blend. So for example, when you look at the speaker from the front, you see it blending. When you look at the speaker a little bit from the side, when you start turning, you start seeing the aggressivity, I would say, of the style and the specific design that we have.
So the Evolve systems are kind of the embodiment of everything that we do really, really well, from sound to look to ergonomics. They're just almost... They're perfect. I want to dig in a little bit deeper with you on the specifics to that. So let's go take a look.
Yep, okay. Let's do that.
So show me some of the things that Evolve has specifically that really make it really such a great combination of everything that we do, not only from the sound aspect, but also design, aesthetics, and ergonomics. What makes this one so unique?
A lot of things, Mike. So first of all, it's a system which comes in 3 pieces. Yeah, also you don't see that here, but it comes in 3 pieces, and we made it in a way that actually you can assemble it, disassemble it very easily, and you can carry it very easily. For example, when you want to take it apart, you just grab it, you have the handle well positioned, you have enough space for your finger, and you carry it, and it's perfectly centered in terms of center of gravity, so it doesn't move up, front or back like that. Another concept that we have established on that, for example, is that you don't have any real fixation between the points. It's only assembled by magnets, okay? So you can lift the part, remove the part very easily. You don't have to click on any button, and the things are removed very easily.
Right.
So you have a lot of products on the market where actually when you want to disassemble the product, it's very complicated. Here, very easy. You remove it, you put it. You have connectors in the pole, so everything is very, very easy to set up. So you have no cables coming, for example, from the top to the bottom of the speaker.
Oh, yeah, right. So there's all your connections are made to the sub. All the wires are in the pole, so you don't have to worry about cleaning up the wires and making sure it looks pretty.
Exactly. You don't
after
have the
you've set
cable
it up.
coming at the back of the pole, nothing.
Right.
Another thing that we did, of course, is the handle. We spoke about that earlier when we were upstairs. And here, a very easy way to grab the speaker on the top. Same thing, enough space for the fingers. We spoke about the profile here, for example. Here, the profile helps to have the handle a little bit up, so you can really grab the speaker and you have really enough space to grab it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's super important because otherwise you can have an handle which is quite useless because it's too recessed, for example.
And then that plate also serves not only as the handle, but obviously it can't stop someone from putting a drink here, but it looks like I shouldn't, right?
Exactly.
And not only that, but it looks interesting. It's not just like a rectangle box. It's not just a box with a pole sticking out of it, right? There is, like you mentioned earlier, it looks beautiful when you look at it, but it also blends into its environment, so it's not overwhelming at the same time. So.
Yeah, and one thing which is important that here you can see, for example, the subwoofers in wood, which is very important to us. We want to have subwoofers in wood. And here, the top, because it's complex, we put it in composite. So that means that we are allowing actually the user to have a very solid box, but have something with a pretty good design, or very good design, and a very good usage, because we have all this space and all these elements which are integrated in this composite box on the top.
And the combination of different materials then also, gives you strength where you need it, but also lightweight where you need it as well, right? So the overall system, you're not just making the whole thing out of one material. You're picking and choosing what's the right material for that component.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Okay.
Another thing that we did, for example, if you look at the back of the speaker, we decided to have an angle for the connector, so it's very easy for the user to connect devices to the speaker and to monitor actually what's happening on the speaker.
Oh, right, yeah, it's angled up where, you can make your connections, down here, and then they're out of the way, right? So your cables aren't sticking up.
Yeah,
right?
and you still have access actually to all the features in a very easy way. You don't have to go down like that.
Everything you need to adjust, and the screen is pointing back up at you.
That's correct.
Yeah, instead of just a flat panel. Obviously, that makes a ton of sense for something that's sitting on the ground. I don't want to have to lay down.
Yeah, because typically you have a speaker on a pole, and you can have access of all to all the functions at the back of the speaker very easily. Here, in this case, the features are on the
down
bottom,
low.
so you want to access it.
So a little bit more about just the overall aesthetic then, rather than ergonomics. We've been offering more and more white speakers in almost every family we come out with now. Obviously, there's a benefit to that, but do we see a trend that way, that you think white is going to become more and more popular?
So yes, there's a big value for the user in having a product that is already in the color they want. Yeah, you could have other options with something that you put on the speaker, but we decided to go this way because we think it's much sleeker and it's much easier to handle somehow.
Yeah, I think when you're putting a white speaker, especially in an environment, if you take a wedding environment, for example, with a lot of really colorful lighting and things like that, right? Aesthetics are so important for that environment, and not all, it's not always that a black box makes sense there. So especially when lighting is becoming so much more popular these days. having white as an option to really reflect that color that you're projecting in the room, I think really makes a lot of sense. And obviously, you know, still very popular with house of worship and, and things of that nature.
It's good for indoor, outdoor application. It's a very good move, actually, I think. There's not a lot of offering on the market, so it's a very good position.
Yeah, still not as popular as black, but I think it's definitely growing. It's really cool. And then as far as the grill pattern here, is a little unique, and I think that's where I start to see some commonalities shared with other products and kind of our brand overall. The pattern we use on the grill, as well as the shape, like these angled edges. What was kind of the idea behind that?
So we have a style guide for products, which is not only for products now, it's for everything that we do, for products, but also for website, for applications, apps, for software also. So we try to have a style which is consistent within our products, products being hardware products like that, but also software, and between our type of products. So it's not only valid for speakers, it's also valid for microphones and for other things. And there are some elements to that. For example, we have angles. Right. We don't have typically round shapes or curved shapes. We have angles. And this consistency in angles, you can see them. You can see it, for example, here on Evolve. You have this chamfer here. You have chamfer also on the top, on the bottom, also on the subwoofer here, on the side, on the grill.
Well, even the pole. I mean, how easy would it be to just make this a round pole? No big deal. But, you know, not only is it not rectangular, it's actually sort of a trapezoid shape, but then the edges are beveled as well. So when you grab it, it's not like digging into your hand. I mean, it's.
So you have this consistency that you see here. For example, you have Evolve, even the top and the bottom have kind of similar design, even if they're not in the same material, for example. So we managed to keep that. And what you see here is an example with ZLX, which is our #1 speaker and the #1 speaker in the world, where you have a similarity, I would say, between the products, despite the fact that they're not from the same family and they're not at the same level of performance or for the same use case.
So for the user then, it makes it very easy if I'm doing an event and I need a mixture of products. Maybe I need a traditional two-way loudspeaker and I want a column system in the mix, and you know, I'm doing some different things. I can mix and match very easily different products from the EV family, and it looks like a cohesive system, even though they're different products. Right?
Yeah, it's the same thing for families like ETX, EKX. You can easily take an EKX top and put it with an ETX subwoofer.
I have trouble telling them apart sometimes, but it's actually a benefit to the user that way. So I can see that. And with ZLX, you know, when you look at that design, you can see definitely with the pattern on the grill, the edges on the side. Well, one of my favorite things about ZLX has been just how easy it is to move around. Obviously, we've sold a million of these things. It's still the #1 speaker out there. But again, when you use it, I mean, one thing that caught me by surprise, when lifting it off the ground, you just grab the handle and the back just kind of swings right up to you. Without even having to bend over. I've got this whole thing and I've got both handles in my hand. It's just the easiest thing in the world. So, I mean, was that by design?
Yeah, of course. Two things were by design with these handles. So one thing is what you just mentioned. And the other thing is that actually with the two handles like that, okay, you will maybe not carry it like that, but at least when you put it on a pole, it will really help to have the bottom handle also, so you can direct actually the speaker very easily.
Sure, getting it up on the pole is super easy. You've got a little screw lock back there to keep it from being tilted.
One thing that you can notice also is the attention to details. I mean, that's the bottom of the speaker, so typically nobody really cares about the bottom of the speaker, when it's on the pole and so on. But when you have it on the floor in a monitor mode, so like that, or more on this angle, people start seeing this surface. So you want to have a surface that is clean and that is really well designed. And so you can see it here with the shape of the feet here that we have, and also the line that we have here.
And again, it's not an off-the-shelf part. This is designed, right? I mean, and made by us. So it's not, you know, you see screw-on rubber feet on pretty much every other speaker out there. I mean, that just goes to show that, you know, the whole thing is made as a system And the devil's in the details. And you know, if we care about something so small as the stupid foot on the bottom of a speaker, that you've really thought about everything in the entire enclosure, and that's really, I think, the difference that EV makes.
Yep. Yeah, I think we pay. I mean, you take the bottom of the speaker, we pay as much attention as at the bottom of the speaker, as the side, at the top, at the front. So that's really one key characteristic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, when you look at the detail, the attention that we pay to these details, of course, the rest we do it perfectly too. There's no question about that.
Yeah.